The Wes Penra Papers. A Journey Through the Multiverse. The Second Level of Learning. http://wespenry.com. Interdimensional Manipulation in Present Time. Prophecy Paper Number 1, The Obsession with Fulfilling Prophecy by Wes Penra, Saturday, October 6, 2012, http://wespenry.com, Part 1. 1. The Energy Grids and the Cycles of Time. Here is a new concept about how time works. Well, it's not really new, it's actually ancient, but today's humans have a very poor concept of time. In my papers I have already stated that all time is simultaneous and can be experienced all at once, or separately as in linear time, or a little bit of both. When I study and research time, the following becomes more and more real to me. Any planet has layers upon layers of energy grids around her, and these grids allow her to be experienced from all her different time frames. Because of these various grids/layers of time, we feel isolated here on Earth, trapped on a planet with no first-hand understanding of the universe outside our atmosphere, unless you're an astronaut, but even they have a very vague concept of the universe. If we were to experience all these energy grids at once, all time would be simultaneous. It's a little bit like watching a movie on a DVD. A disc has tracks in it, and if we run the DVD from beginning to end, it will tell a linear story, reading track after track. But if we could watch all these tracks at once, the whole movie would play out at once and stop being linear. If this happened, we would be extremely overwhelmed, turn off the machine and return the DVD and tell the retailer that something is wrong with it. The energy grids work in a similar fashion. If we experienced all the grids at the same moment, past, present, and future would hit us all at once, and our nervous system would go ballistic and we would turn insane from being totally overloaded with information. So instead, to have a 3D experience, we are locked into one energy grid at the time, and the DVD can continue playing its linear movie. If you were an alien astronaut and wanted to land on Earth, it's a whole science to it. There are portals, or openings, and if you enter one of these portals, you will access all of the different realities and time frames and corridors that run off this particular portal. It's very important that you enter not only the right portal, but also choose the correct corridor once you're inside the portal, or you could end up anywhere and anytime during the history of the planet. Before you enter a certain portal, you also would like to know where the planet is in comparison with the zodiac to make sure you land in the right time and place. Thus, if we use Earth as an example, you can visit the 21st century, the 1500s, or the 3500s, respectively. All these times, and all other times, always exist and can be replayed. The Pleiadians say, portals are protective devices that are put around planets. The ownership, creation, or making of a portal is an awesome task. There is a frequency energy that must be maintained to hold that portal open. There are many portals on Earth. Within these time frames there are cycles of time with beginnings and ends. Some cycles are longer, while others are shorter, but each cycle is supposed to accomplish something, i.e. each cycle has a purpose, like a chapter in a movie. If we're talking about a Mayan cycle, it's 5,125 years long, while a zodiacal cycle lasts for 26,000 years. Still, the zodiacal cycle is not the longest one and the Mayan not the shortest. It is my understanding that when a planet is born out of the womb of its sun, she is born with these energy grids, representing cycles of time relevant for that particular planet. Later on, when a founder, or a group of founders, come and ask the sun for permission to create on one or more of her planets, they start filling these energy grids with meaning and purposes. You could say they are creating the plot to a movie that is supposed to play out over a long duration of time. Once the plot is established, the characters in the movie are created, thus life on the planet is starting to evolve. This includes everything from the simplest single-cell organism to the most complicated, intelligent being. I am not certain that this creation even has to be in 3D, but it is my understanding that most intelligent life forms who are later becoming star travelers, if they choose to, start out in what metaphysics calls the third dimension, 3D. 1.1. Haven't we lived this life before? If we want to continue using the metaphor for a movie recorded on a DVD, one track would for example be a great year, 26,000 years in our terms. Within that track are smaller cycles like that of the Mayan calendar. The founders, when they create the movie, program every cycle to have a meaningful beginning and end, as a part of a bigger plot, which is a part of an even bigger plot. When they think they have decided how to do this and everything is programmed into the energy grids, they are satisfied and leave the planet to play out the script, still watching it from a distance, from other dimensions, to see if their creation was fruitful. The Pleiadians, for example, have always said that nature, which includes us, is a program. But, you may say, how does free will come into the picture then if a planet's history and its development is just a script being played out? Well, that's the exciting part. If a film producer, who is a creator god in his own right when he makes a movie, completes a film, the plot is set in stone. What's in the movie is what you get, you can't change the plot, you can only observe what others play out on the screen. In real life it's different. The plot is made in a very similar fashion as a movie, but the actors, such as you and I, have free will and can change the plot with our thoughts and actions, at least to a certain extent. If we couldn't, there wouldn't be an experiment, and no real experiences, because the outcome would always be what was programmed to begin with. Hence, as it is, the movie can end totally different from how the producers, the founders, had intended, which would usually be to their liking, unless the ending is destructive. Now, after have entered 2012 in our energy grid, we are completing a great year cycle and are beginning anew. This means we are at the end of an old species and in the creation of a new. Homo sapiens will not be the same species after the nanosecond. Always, at the end of a great year, the life forms who are being bombarded with the geometry of light, traveling mainly on gamma rays, from the Sun, the local central Sun, Alcyone, and the galactic center, due to the lineup of these three relay stations, will have their DNA significantly upgraded. And this is being done without the necessity of any technology, it's a natural process. However, it's up to us how much advantage we take from this free ride we are on. Either way, we are moving from being Homo sapiens, or Homo sapiens sapiens, to becoming Homo nova, the new human. This means we are becoming much more multidimensional and can perceive things along the lines of time. The purpose of this particular end time was the great healing along the lines of time. Linear time is collapsing, and our past and future are trying to merge with our constant present. It's up to us how much we let it, and how much fear will steer our personal destiny. A person who is terrified over what is happening to them and can't cope with the changes they are facing, inside themselves and from outside events, will not make it. The failure will be on a gradient scale, from remaining in a state of extreme anxiety, to committing suicide. In fact, all that's happening to us is, like I said, a natural process, and nothing to fear. When things get overwhelming, we need to slow down and create a stable datum, meaning we pick out something from the confusion, it doesn't matter what it is, and start working on that. Then we take the next thing and the next thing and so on, one thing at the time, and after a while we'll notice that we are not so overwhelmed anymore, but in fact feel better than we did before we got overwhelmed. It is the state of doing nothing that keeps us in confusion. When we are resolving such major issues which we are dealing with, sometimes causing a person to become overwhelmed, and trigger their worst anxieties, they are healing their timelines, our energy grids. And this is exactly what we need to do in order to become multi-D. What is popping up in front of us, sometimes as huge problems, is exactly what we need to confront, because if we do, we are not only solving the problem in present time, but across the timelines. Now, there's only one major problem, of course, you may say, isn't there always? Normally, in a standard 3D situation on a standard 3D world, where evolution takes its time and moves forward, it takes the time it takes, but when the species has played their script until the end, everybody is free to move on, empowered and armed with a very useful and beneficial experience in the realm of matter. Now they can start exploring the universe and all the dimensions, and unite with other star beings and star races out there who are excited to get to know the new race which has graduated and now has the experience needed to become galactic citizens. All is well, and those who want to can then eventually start creating their own script and start seeding their own worlds with some help from the goddess. So, what's the problem, then? Well, when the founders create within all these energy grids, which are like the tracks on a DVD, they have to lock in each track, or grid, so that the 3D beings who are evolving won't experience the chaos that would be the consequence if they had access to all the grids at once. Their biological neurology in 3D wouldn't allow it. So it's normal to lock in the beings on a dense world of matter to protect them, like a quarantine of sorts. Then, at the end of a cycle, a code was programmed within their DNA in the creation stage, and this code works like a key which automatically unlocks the next energy grid, the next track on the DVD, so the soul group can start a new cycle. The problem with us is that we were unfortunate enough to encounter the Sirian overlords. One of the major thing they did to us was to lock us into one single grid and throw away the key. What does that mean? It means that we are living in a time loop. We are reliving a DVD track over and over again. At the end of a cycle, we're supposed to move on to the next, but the way the Sirians did it was not to give us access to the continuing grid, which would have led to the stars, making us into gods, just like them. Consequently, we have access to this particular grid we are currently experiencing, from beginning to end, and all the grids before that, but none of those which are supposed to follow after that, while optimally, if we weren't under the control of this oppressive star race, we would have reached the stars ages ago. I am not even sure how many times we have re-experienced the same energy grid. It could have been twice, it could have been 10 times, or it could have been a lot more. Each time we rewind the DVD and start all over, we change the plot to some degree because of our individual thoughts and actions, but the basic of the plot remains the same. This is also where the recycling of souls and the amnesia implants come into play. They don't want us to realize that we live the same thing over and over again, because then we may get the idea, God forbid, that we want to break loose and peek into the future instead of the past, and perhaps one day reach the stars. Here we also have the secret to what the RA material calls the harvest. At the end of each cycle, a certain amount of people have woken up to the fact that they are trapped and decide to do something about it. These are the ones who move on to higher dimensions, or densities, as it's often called in metaphysics. Those who are still asleep will continue living the time loop until it's their turn to wake up. However, and this is important, I strongly suggest you don't let any outside star race come and beam you up or help relocating you with spaceships or otherwise. This process of waking up is on your own merit, and you can do it all by yourself, and you're meant to. There are star beings who, by channeling their information, are telling you the truth about the harvest, but add the following little insignificant thing, as a twist to it. They say that they are the ones who will help out in the process and guide the enlightened ones so they end up in the right place. I would suggest these channeled entities are no one else than the Sirian Alliance in disguise. The RA Collective even blamed the Orions for being the only ETS of negative density able to occasionally find a hole in the Earth grid, the quarantine, and manage to land here on Earth and create havoc, or like in the case of the RA material, a fifth density negative Orion being was the one who eventually had Don Elkins, the brilliant questioner in the RA material, commit suicide. He took on the entity that had possessed Carla Ruckert, the woman who channeled RA, and committed suicide to mislead the Orion entity away from Carla and save her from her possession. He succeeded. This RA Collective claimed to have nothing to do with Marduk RA, but all the evidence point in the direction that they are Sirians. These entities have a strong Sirian imprint. The truth of the matter is that what these beings will do is to take those who are evolved, ready, and willing, transfer them, sometimes with spaceships, and sometimes in the ether, and they are, according to my research, most probably going to be placed in enhanced fourth or fifth dimensional bodies, or so they say, in order to be able to incarnate on Earth again as a more evolved being. In reality they will be put in hybrid bodies that are going to work as the beginning of a new bloodline of cyborgs that are going to assist the Sirians as super soldier officers in the future. So I strongly advise you, who are excited about these channeled entities who say they are going to help you ascend. Don't believe them, or all your efforts to evolve yourself have most probably been in vain. Much more about this in level 3. Then, what will happen now with all the rest of us when this cycle is finished, supposedly sometime around 2012 to 2013? Will we all be swept back in time and start all over on a 26,000 years cycle with full amnesia, something which has possibly happened before? I would say it depends entirely on us. How many of us will wake up? How many will raise their frequencies? How much will the mass consciousness be affected by all the positive changes? This is the reason why I write all these endless amount of papers to tackle our situations from different angles and wake up as many as I can. I don't believe in the 3% rule myself anymore, see later section of this paper, but I think enough people have to wake up in order to create what's needed to skip over the scratch in the broken DVD to move on to the next section of the grid, which I believe is the last one. If we don't make it, there is a big chance we will relive the last great year. The Pleiadians even tell us that if we don't make it, we will not get another chance in another million years, albeit, I am not sure if they mean this literally or figuratively. From what I have learned, the difference between previous cycles is that this time we have a tremendous amount of help. Many star races think it's crucial that we make it this time. Not only for our own sake, but for theirs, and for the sake of our planet. We are polluting the living library to the maximum and are misusing energy to an extent that it affects large sections of the universe. This is the reason why I think that with everything adding up, we have a chance to make it this time. But regardless, we need to continue spreading our energies and do our best to keep our high frequencies stable. My point is, don't be deceived now at the end of the nanosecond, when you've made it this far. I am sure all readers of this material are very eager to move on to the next energy grid instead of under amnesia relieve yet another cycle of perhaps 26,000 years. I'll tell you, I am done myself, no more recycling for me, thank you. And here is the good news, there is an escape and it's fairly simple. Some say that the time loop we're in is actually the second last of the energy grids, but we keep it in existence with our own mass consciousness. Because when we agree to living in the Sirian system and are obeying their twisted laws that do nothing but enhance the power of the rich to the expense of the masses, we also agree to being implanted with amnesia and recycled, and thus we keep the whole time loop alive and well. If we break this curse, the next cycle will take us to the stars, I think that's inevitable. Look at us, we are so close. We already know the theory behind how to do it. Set our energy free and start using our fire and you will see what we are able to do. If we wanted to, we could blow the Sirians away a million light years, that's how powerful we are when we're unleashed. They know this. They are very afraid of us humans. Not only have they locked us into this single energy grid, they have also set the frequency to be slightly off, which means we are extremely hard to find for aliens outside our planet who don't know in what frequency band to look. We are invisible to the outside universe. And the Sirians have decided to keep us separated in this loop until they know what to do with us. They have frenetically tried to steal our divine fire, but haven't really succeeded, albeit it seems like they believe they now have almost gained enough power to dare confronting the divine feminine and the 96% realm. But not without using us as foot soldiers and shields. If there are casualties, and there will be, believe me, it will be us and not them on the most part. At least that's the plan. See, they will do everything they can to convince us that we need to fight this future galactic war for them, and once we agree to do that, we will be the ones who get killed. All they need to say is, wait a minute. We are not supposed to fight, the humans are. They have told us they want to do that for us. It's their fault, not ours that your civilians die. In other words, they will be able to twist it, although in a much more sophisticated way than I just described. They already do that, and the Vietnam War is a great example. American soldiers were ordered to rape and murder women and children, and when it was exposed to the American public, the military said they never gave such orders, it was done totally on the initiative of the soldiers themselves. I want to wait until a later paper to suggest how we shall repair the broken DVD and move on as individuals, groups, and hopefully as a species, but I highly doubt everybody will make it, unfortunately. Some say, like James the Wingmakers, that we should all wait with ascending until all humanity is ready, which will be sometime around 2065 to 80, where have we heard that time frame before? Yes, the alleged return of Nibiru, although that time frame has now been changed. He says we need to move on as a whole mass consciousness and that there is no such thing as personal ascension. And he adds that even if there was, why would we want to leave our fellow man in this mess and just think about ourselves? I used to fall for that argument myself and started to get a bad conscience for wanting to move on without all the rest of humanity, something that of course held me back in my own evolvement, as guilt always does. Now I understand that this is just another trap to keep those who are ready still trapped, so we can't escape. Yes, it's very sad if all humanity can't make it, but we are individuals, and as such on our own paths. If some people need more time to realize what they sit in, that's how it needs to be. There is no reason why a person who has worked extremely hard, probably over many lifetimes to come this far, must sit and wait for those who preferred to watch football games on TV, drink beer, and vote for Bush or Obama. It goes against common sense. I am not a martyr and I don't support martyrs, either, because they waste their own life and are remembered as heroes and idols, which is just another kind of worship. Each being is important in themselves, and what you do to evolve and enlighten yourself is more beneficial for the rest of this soul group and the universe in general than all the help you can give others in form of money and assistance which will deplete your own energy. I am not saying we shouldn't help others when they ask for it, but I am saying that it has to be done in a manner so that it doesn't inflict on your own progress. This is very important. 2. The mechanics around prophecies. Now, when we know how linear time works in a 3D world, and that time is actually a construct which loses its importance when we're multi- and interdimensional, it's easy to comprehend that the Syrian gods can easily get access to the Akashic records of planet Earth and also figure out the plot the original planners have made up for our original planet, Old Terra. It's also somewhat comprehensible to think that the Syrians, with a lot of help from Aryans like Enki, can reconstruct the grids after the fact that Old Terra was destroyed and Earth was formed. Most certainly, Earth in its present form lost its original Terra grids and was now orbiting the Sun with grids that were empty and had to be filled. So Enki, Ninhursag, and their team simply created a new plot and thus filled the grids of time with their own story. It is my understanding that the full plot needs to end with that the chosen seeded life form, S, has to get the choice whether they want to reach for the stars or not, so the Syrians couldn't get away from that, but they did have the option to lock one of the grids in so that time kept repeating itself over and over. Also, they can't stop the nanosecond and the boosts of energy and information coming onto the planet right now, but they can do whatever is in their power to diminish the positive effects and they are, indeed, but they are losing ground and are getting desperate and careless. Their counteractions are becoming more and more obvious even for the non-educated person, and their carefully structured plans are now crumbling and they are making tons of mistakes. Even their functional insanity, Pleiadian term, is now turning into insanity, plain and simple. As discussed above, when an ethical founder group is seeding a planet and filling the grids with their creative energies, they let the species on the planet evolve on their own, perhaps reaching the goals the founders set, perhaps not, or maybe they chose a totally different direction, which in certain terms could be even more exciting, both for the actors and the producers. However, when it comes to the Syrians, changing directions and not follow the script is out of the question, or something that needs to be avoided by all means. So the warlords created a plot where they are in charge and in one form or another are treated like gods. The actors then need to follow the plot in the direction the Syrian alliance wants it to go. On occasion, the actors start to act out on their own and move away from the original script. To get them back on track, something drastic needs to be done, and the more people there are on the planet, the more drastic the effects need to be to keep the unsuspecting actors on track. Using the words actors and producers makes it sound like a play that's not real or serious, but I want to remind the reader that this is not the case and not my intention. These terms are handy to use here, but this is not a game or a play. It's an experiment out of mind. Usually, with a little bit of creativity on the Syrians' part, we humans can get back in line again. Letting a few people experiencing some kind of paranormal phenomena in form of revelations with religious overtones help keeping the majority of the population in check. Even better would be to actually be truthful to the masses and tell them what their gods have planned for them. The most extreme way of doing this, and often the most effective, is to tell them the truth in form of a series of prophecies. They let people know what is to come and what is expected from them when it happens. Thus, we have the biblical prophecies, like the Book of Revelation and the Book of Daniel as two prime examples. Many other prophecies, belonging to other religions, are telling a very similar story with their own twist to it, and that way the Syrians can cover most peoples of the world. Even the native Indians, like the Hopi, have their own version of the Book of Revelation in their mythology. Here in the Western world, the most common religions are Christianity and its cousin, Roman Catholicism. So the Bible prophecies are what will be emphasized here by the Syrian overlords. They have a number of secret societies, which they once took over from the followers of the divine feminine and distorted, at their convenience, that have many things in common due to that they are top-owned by the same interdimensional beings, and many of them work day and night to ensure prophecies are being fulfilled. On a higher level of these societies, the members are using a series of occult rituals to evoke spirits who can help them to accomplish the fulfillment of prophecy from the astral. Many of them go so far that they are more than willing to be possessed by spirits they evoke in order to get to where they want to go. In fact, you don't even have to be a high-level member to be willing to do whatever is necessary to fulfill your goals. In 2009, I wrote a book called The Myth About Supreme David Rockefeller, which you can find online and downloadable from this very website. One of the characters in the book was Michael Noel Prescott, whom at that time worked together with Supreme David Rockefeller and Jarl Vidar of the German Thule Order to accomplish exactly this, fulfilling prophecies. He and Jarl are still working together towards this goal as far as I know, and at this point in time, Prescott is highly possessed by spirits he's evoked in magical rituals, believing he is going to be the host for no one less than Set himself. This entity is coming up from the abyss, according to Prescott, and will inhabit Prescott's body. Prescott is working hard to prepare himself for this event by practicing something he calls mirror magic, which is an extension, or perhaps an abomination, of Aleister Crowley's work. As I am writing this paper, I get personal threats from Prescott. He says that he is it, and there is nothing else to focus on than him. Thus, all my papers are a waste. When I more or less told him that my focus is elsewhere, and there are thousands of people claiming to be it, he started threatening me, saying that his powers are more than anyone else's, and that he will destroy me and anybody else who are not agreeing with him. Even the ETS have to lay down before him, he claims. Then he disappeared from Facebook. So, we have all those nice guys out there, interpreting the prophecies in their own way, doing what they can to spread fear around them. Of course, being strictly patriarchal, they also abuse women to achieve their goals, using their powers, being the vampires they are. As we can see, this whole thing is very complicated, where beings like Aleister Crowley and L. Ron Hubbard, Crowley's self-proclaimed successor, play a big role in paving the road for what's to come. Scientology, with its OT levels, seem to have as their purpose to extract fires from the person's light body/avatar, thus depleting the Scientologist from his/her real power, and instead have them go exterior, leave their physical body, which is an end phenomenon in most Scientology processes, and the goal is to have the Thetan, the avatar, exterior from the physical body with full perceptions as a regular everyday state of beingness. What I can see is that by following Scientology commands and so-called auditing, counseling, often done with an e-meter, the body Thetans, fires, are told to depart from the avatar, and the avatar is now operating away from the physical body instead of inside of it, which it should be to keep the bio-mind grounded, and the fires can be replaced with entities. In other words, the Scientologist gets possessed, while the Sirians, in the astral, collect the fires that leave the Scientologists during sessions. And Scientology is an expanding movement, supposedly with millions of members around the world. What a feast for the Syrian overlords! I was a Scientologist myself in the mid-80s to early 90s, and I am very happy that I was able to get out of there. And honestly, it took me years afterwards to become normal again. It was probably the hardest work I've done on myself in my entire life. But I believe I came out of it as a whole person again, and if there were entity possession involved in my case as well, I feel I got rid of it. Still, as strange as it may sound, I needed the whole Scientology experience, because unwittingly on their part, it taught me a lot about myself and others, and how the mind works, and prepared me for my real work, which was still to be accomplished way in the future. However, this is nothing I wish upon anybody else, unless they really feel it's their path in this lifetime. Just like Prescott, there are people around the globe who really believe they are born for one single reason, to become hosts for extraterrestrials and demons of one sort or another. And from my own research, I believe they are right. The thing is that many, if not most, of them think they are doing this for a good cause in their own twisted ways. And like I've mentioned many times, people like Jarl Vidar of the Thule Order embraces everything and everybody who seem to have anything to do with prophecy whatsoever. His philosophy is that it doesn't matter if the people he is connecting with are evil or good, that's beside the point. All he wants is for prophecy to be fulfilled, hence all characters who have anything to do with it need to step forward and do what they're supposed to do. Jarl and those who share his philosophy, and they are more than we think, believe that when everything is over, and millions, if not billions of people have died in wars and disaster, the bird phoenix will rise from the ashes and a new golden age will start that will last for 1,000 years. Therefore, Jarl and Prescott welcome the Anunnaki, the Syrians, and their king, because they are the major players in the prophecies, and the Syrian King of Kings would most certainly be accepted to sit on the throne of Earth. Not by people like Prescott, however, who is basically their adversary, but still not in our favor, of course. We are living in the end times, and per the script, hell itself is supposed to break loose, and portals open to the universe and to the spirit world in the hell dimension. In other words, chaos is reigning and is going to do so even more, and entities of all kinds are going to show up here in our reality. So, be true to yourself, keep your mind clean, be as ethical and moral as you can, based upon your own values, take care of unfinished business, create a bubble around yourself, do breathing exercises, meditate, but only if you know what you're doing. You don't want to invite hitchhikers, you need to ground yourself, preferably with crystals and by being barefoot with your feet or body on the ground, and not sitting in lotus position on a couch with no earth connection, no sloppy thinking. Create your own reality and concentrate on building the future you want here and now in the present. Make sure you keep your vibration up, and inspire others with your beingness. Help others when help is asked for, if you feel you can be of assistance, but only as long as it does not deplete your own energies and stop you from working on your own progress. With these simple rules, you avoid psychic vampires and learn how to detect them. This is advice that is all extremely important to ponder in these times, because there are so many energies on this planet right now that we don't want to mingle with, so we need to protect ourselves. And remember, what you read in the newspapers or watch on the TV news is usually nothing that has to do with you personally. Create your local universe. Everything that's not in your own local universe is happening in another universe somewhere else. You are not experiencing it firsthand, so it's something that happens to somebody else, somewhere else. You can decide if all this war, chaos, terror, and disaster is going to be part of your own universe or not. So see it for what it is, it's other people's universes that you hear about secondhand. Instead of getting involved in all that, Concentrate on your own present time and your own future, and the chance that you are branching off to a version of the multiverse which is more at your liking is most likely to happen. Those who have read my previous papers know who the God in the Old Testament is, and they understand the Jesus story better, so it's logical to think that the Bible prophecies have everything to do with the Syrians. In fact, it's most evident. This means that the second coming will also have to do with the Syrians, of course. We discussed the prophecies a lot in Level I, but there is more to say about them, and a few more things I feel I have to add. Nowhere in the Bible does it state that the tribulation, the Battle of Armageddon, the rapture, and the second coming are events that are going to happen around 2012. In fact, there have been times in the past when people have thought that now the prophecies are going to play out, and nothing happened, so why am I talking about 2012? After all, if this date is going to be mentioned at all, wouldn't it be in connection to the alignment with the galactic center and the Mayan calendar, and possibly also with the wave of the supernova? Yes, and especially as the return of the gods was supposed to happen about 50 years in the future, according to the Syrians themselves, and to AR of LPGC. Then, suddenly, I get this urgent message that things have changed. A.AM.E has been spotted in the infrared spectrum, 10 from Earth, coming in from the south, figure 1 to 4. A.AM.E/Nibiru's position on October 17, 2011, was approximate 1 AU from Earth, but more exactly 93 million miles and an extra 17,000 to 18.000 miles more, according to LPGC. See PDF file, Extraordinary Times, an epoch in which humankind grows up, from LPGC, and Geometry of Actionable Choice Making by A.R. Borden, which can be downloaded here, or found in the e-books section of this website. It's helpful to read this essay in order to understand the LPGC version of what is happening right now, and the supernova wave could also be imminent, creating a great disaster on our planet, so they say. Both these events were confirmed by LPGC, and this means, according to them, that we have two major problems to face. Still, A.AM.E is the immediate, major threat, they say. However, we are going to look into this a little bit more in detail in a few minutes, and this is the reason why it's helpful to read the essays. I am currently resting my case regarding the validity of these essays, but will follow the procedures, sessions, that are currently in the making, with great interest. The readers will be informed as of any significant outcome or revelations. In the meantime, the Syrians are continuing to barter with humanity, giving us technology they need and we think we need. Video and computer games are getting more and more sophisticated and violent, and the devices are getting smaller and smaller, until big PCs like the desktop I'm writing from now will be obsolete. What parents don't understand is that the virtual reality that the kids are getting hooked on is just a miniature of the virtual reality we ourselves live in, but is just as real. Kids are leaving their bodies and disappear into the games and become part of the scenario. This is an excellent way for the Syrians to come in, as the kids are creating portals for interdimensional entities to enter. Like I've hinted at before, the real invasion will not be physical but will happen in the nano world. And they are possessing our kids through technology, and their parents allow them. Maybe the reader can see the pattern now. It is done so brilliantly that the Syrians, if they are ever confronted with what they have done, can say, "We didn't do it. We just provided the technology. The humans did it to themselves."